I remember one week I wrote about the minor league. The concession of the week was like a beer milkshake, and it was our first like. I remember I wrote a sentence and I was like, "This is our first liquid concession item of the week, but don't worry, we aren't schlocking some bullshit like Michelob Ultra." And then like 2 days later, I get sent this long email. I'm on this long email chain that like was from like the marketing people at Sports Illustrated, and apparently Michelob Ultra was like a huge sponsor of Sports Illustrated, and I had no idea. And Sports Illustrated had to give them like a bunch of like ads as a baked good because I fucked up and made it. They're like, I think they were just like, "Are you willing to change the art? Like change the statement?" I was like, "Dude, I don't give a shit. I just." Thought of
Shiner Box.
Yeah, literally, I was just trying to think of the worst beer I could. I'm sorry.
The most disgusting light.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I
It's like and then they confidently order things that we don't have, And it's like fucking New Yorkers. So it's like they're so confident about it. They're like, they'll sit down, they'll be there for like 2 seconds, and they're already like, "Are you gonna fucking talk to me?" Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, for
and then
real?
they'll be like, "Can we get 2 salmon burgers?" And then I'll be like,
Not even close.
I'm like, we don't have salmon. This guy sat down the other day. He goes, vanilla coffee, and then I go, we don't have.
What does that even mean?
I go, we don't have vanilla coffee. He goes, apple juice. And then I'm like, we don't have apple juice.
Is this a teenage girl?
No, it's like a 30-year-old man. And I'm like, we don't have apple juice, and he goes, you don't have anything. I'm like, we don't have anything.
It's also, you clearly don't stock the restaurant, so that's so funny.
He's like, he didn't once read what was. I'm like, everything that's here is.
I'm a terrible orderer because I get so anxious. My favorite like bad ordering story was like I went to this Thai restaurant on the Lower East Side, and it was really dark. It was sort of like a vibey place, and I didn't understand. It was one of the things where all the things on the menu were foreign. So the waiter came and they're like, "What do you want?" So I just pointed at a thing, and the waiter was just like, told me, "It's very spicy and full of bones," and I was just like, "Okay," and it was inedible. It was like chunks of fish. It was
like the spiciest thing
it was like,
exists on the planet.
Oh yeah, and I looked like, and also the fish itself was like not. I guess it is a cultural thing, but it was
a delicacy.
It was like there was all the there was a lot of bones inside the soup. It wasn't delicate.
It was like this is going to kill me. I'm going to swallow a bone.
But I also just think it's funny because as soon as they warned me, I said yes, but as soon as they left, I was like, oh, they were telling me not to order it.
Yeah, they're like, this white man will die.
Yeah, they were telling me not to order it. I was like, oh, whatever. I'm stupid.
Yeah. So wait, did you say you started stand-up at the comic strip, though? Is that
No, I didn't start stand-up at the comic strip. So I started
What was your first mic?
My first mic was in my senior year of college in Austin.
Oh, yeah.
At Cherry Hill or Cherry Lane Cafe in Austin. And
before Rogan.
It was
you were there.
Yeah, I actually.
You were kind of.
Rogan heard about me out there. He's like, "Wow, this is really." It was much more of just like Austin was an alty scene. It was a great place to start stand up because everyone was very. It was the first time I joined a community like that, and I did for like, my first open mic went. It's fine enough because I was smart and I said it was my first open mic.
Yeah, people were nice.
Yeah, and I think it was like, and I thought I did fine. And then I did it in Austin for 6 months and I did okay. I like advanced in their like the big contest there, so I thought I was fine at it. And then my experience in New York is like I moved to New York for work and I figured I'd keep doing stand-up. And I went to one mic at Eastville, also on the Lower East Side, and it was... a typical New York open mic, but it wasn't the type of ego death I was ready for after doing comedy in a place where everyone's proud of you for trying. And then
everywhere else besides New York, it feels like.
The second time was at the comic strip. It was like, it was like the first type of ringer thing I had to do. And I knew 3 people in New York. I invited 2 of them to the show, and they both didn't come. And then I was told, you can't go up. And then I quit comedy for 10 years.
Oh, my goodness.
As you do.
You were like, yeah.
Well, no, I guess
Why did you quit? Because you were just so embarrassed?
I think I was super embarrassed by it, and then I think it was like a switch flipped in my head that like I was there. I never viewed myself as like a comedian. I always thought I moved to New York to do writing, and I had like a writing job I was excited about, and I think something switch flipped in my mind that was like, okay, this is different. I'm gonna just focus on being a writer.
Yeah.
And
It's so funny. The bringer thing though is funny because is you feel so embarrassed. I had the same experience with the bringer. It's like I think everyone does it, and they make you feel horrible about yourself because you didn't just do their work for them.
Yeah, that you didn't promote it properly.
And then you can't really explain this to your friends because you're like,
no, you can't.
You're asking them to spend like $40 to go to a comedy show.
And also just like the reality, the gut check of just like, oh, I want to do comedy, but I can't find 3 people who want to come watch me do comedy. And like, I think that's the ego hit. And I think that's why you have to just really enjoy doing it for the sake of it, or else it's not. I guess that was why when I came back 10 years later and I had a sense of what I was wading into, like it was so much better for me versus when I was just like, But what was your first open mic like? I'm curious.
So I was in it was in New Orleans, and I just I lived down the street from a bar that had an open mic. And that's it.
Had you always wanted to do comedy?
Yeah, I'd always wanted to do comedy, but I had no idea how to do it.
Who was the one who pushed you? There had to be one person who was like, you have to go up with this. I surely wasn't. Or was it just you one day you stumbled in there?
Well, I always wanted to do it without mentioning it to anyone. But then once I went to the open mic with some friends, they were like, Elliot, you got to do this. You're funny when you're wasted. So I was like, oh, fuck yeah.
I think you just kind of need permit. Like for me, so my thing's like so much lamer because I took a stand-up comedy. Like it was a class about the history of stand-up comedy at Texas. So, really good use of my money. And for like my final project, I did a thing where...
Was that at UT?
Yeah, at University of Texas. And for my final project for that class, I was like, okay, I'm going to try comedy as like an experiment. And like... But I remember the actual project itself was so stupid because I was like, I'm going to try the same set in front of my 2 roommates and then in front of a group of people. And I'm going to see what does better. And I was like... Why did I need to do it? It was really dumb. I think, but it was mostly because I wanted an excuse to do it without... You want permission, right?
Yeah. So when you were taking the history of comedy class at UT, and then you planned to do a mic, who are you trying to emulate when you were on stage? What were you like? I'm going to be like...
Oh, that was...
It's funny to think you might be like, I'm going to be like a Lenny Bruce or something.
I get asked that, and the truth is I don't have like a firm... I genuinely don't have like a firm person that I tried to like emulate. If you ask me about writing, like sports writers, like for Sports Illustrated, there's like a columnist, Rick Riley.
Yeah.
Who, have you heard of him before? But he did a back page column.
I only know Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah. Well, I guess similar to like Hunter S. Thompson, Rick Riley, his stuff was like funny, but it had heart in like an interesting way. But it was also always one page, which was my attention span. But also,
like, that's nice.
Yeah, I guess it also, I became a columnist because of him, and I think that, like, being a column writer is what led me into comedy writing, and then I started doing stand-up in college because I wasn't sure if I'd get any writing jobs, and I thought I needed a creative outlet.
You're like, well, I'll make money doing stand-up.
Yeah, honestly, it's still, and I think it still has, like, it's hard to occur to me, like, the idea of making money doing stand-up has never been a super big part of the equation, just because it seems like such a...
I think that's a horrible idea, to be thinking about making money and stand-up.
I think if you go into it with the idea of making money, I don't think you'll actually get there because there's just so much disappointment and so much not making money. I don't know, if you really want to make
so much money spent
and you have like the skills to be a stand-up, you should be a killer sales guy for like the evilest thing possible, and that seems like a more efficient thing.
Okay, I'll introduce the show.
Oh yeah, we did it.
This is episode 9 of Starving Artists. I'm here with what should be your big credit?
I don't know.
Senior creative consultant at G2 Esports.
Oh, that works. Yeah, so that's just from my LinkedIn.
Onion contributor.
Yeah, that works. It's a general. I've done a lot of different types of writing, I guess is the best way.
Sports Illustrated contributor.
Yeah.
HuffPost contributor.
Yeah. Did you click on my LinkedIn profile?
No, you told me that.
Oh, I told you that?
I did click on your LinkedIn
It's hard
profile,
for me, yeah.
but you also told me that.
Because
You're a conservative's worst nightmare.
I'm not humble at all. And also, yeah, I'm a conservative's worst nightmare.
You're donating to Planned Parenthood.
Actively.
You work.
Yeah, no, I did work.
You wrote for the HuffPost.
I did when it was like banging.
Was that your first job in New York? Was that
my first job in New York? Was at Huffington Post. It felt, in retrospect,
what year was that?
2011. So HuffPost.
That was like the peak of the HuffPost.
Yeah. And it was a really cool place to work. It was much more like a journalism summer camp. It felt like a lot of time because it was like not just my first job. It was like my manager's first job.
Nice.
So it was like very much we were sort of making up as we go, but it was also it was a nice taste of like living in New York because the people there were like friggin' smart and legit, and you realize right away like, oh, I can't really wing it.
Oh, I have to do like a real job here. Yeah.
You can't really wing this one.
It's like when I came here and I got into an acting school.
Yeah.
And it was immediately like I felt like the worst decision I've ever made.
Well, I'm sure. What were the types? I'm sure were the people you were with, were they just like were they big personality, very actory, or what?
Well,
what
yeah.
gave you that impression?
Well, there's a lot of the people in the acting class were like pretty novice, or like they were actors that had about the same place in their career as me, but like the teaching was just like so fucking hardcore. It was like I don't know.
Well, what's an example of an exercise that like made you? Because I know right away. Because I can say this is why I don't act and wouldn't be good at it because I'm bad at this stuff.
Like we had to do these activities. It was like Meisner.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's like it would take forever.
I've heard of that one. Know nothing about it.
It's just a method of
the
acting.
technique that I'm familiar with. Yes.
But you had to do this thing. Like the whole class kind of revolved around activities that you would do in front of the class, and they were like improv activities. So it was like you had a big open space with some props you could use, and like a bed and like a table. And then everyone sits on risers, and then the teacher's in a desk in the corner.
Yeah.
And you would have to come up with the activity you were doing, and then someone would come to the door, and y'all would improv together.
No.
And the point of the activity is like to bring out a strong emotion in yourself.
Yeah.
But if your activity was bad, I mean, the teacher would just rip you apart.
Oh,
you
really?
would just be like, you'd feel like the biggest idiot, because like you'd be like dressed in a funky costume and like trying to pretend like your cat died or something, and then he would just be like, "What the fuck are you doing right now?"
Would it be people trying?
One time I was dressed as a wizard, and this is a good example.
Yeah. So to be clear, as soon as you dressed as a wizard and looked in the mirror, you weren't like, I don't know. You weren't like, I don't know.
So this all made sense in the context of the class, but
it doesn't make sense to me right now. But yeah, no, go ahead.
The scenario was like my sister, who doesn't have a child, had a child.
Is your sister a muggle? Was this clarity?
My sister, this is so embarrassing to say out loud.
No, this is why I'm asking.
Yeah. So my sister had a child, and then my sister died, and I had to take care of the child, and the child was coming over, so I was dressed as a wizard because I want to make the child feel at home.
Oh, so you're trying to do like a heartwarming
like
thing?
It's going to be fun. And I'm dressed as a wizard, and I had like a cauldron. I brought like a black cast iron pot from the kitchen. And so this is in front of about 20 other actors.
Sick.
And they know the deal, though.
Yeah,
they're probably just like, I wonder how this is going to work out. So I have a cauldron, I have a wand, and then I like made up fake spells. And here's the thing. The person only comes to the door when the teacher like gives them a signal. He like flips a light switch, and then they come to the door. So he'll just let you kind of freestyle. He wants to see if you're going to actually bring an emotion out of yourself.
Did you go there? What was the emotion you went to, and what was the feedback you got?
I did not go. Like, I didn't.
What the person the person at the door was the kid, or what was the interaction?
No, so I'm making up the scenario about the kid.
Yeah.
That's in my head.
Oh.
They don't know what I'm doing.
This is so stupid. I'm sorry.
And then so I'm like doing spells. I'm like practicing what I'm going to do when the kid comes over. And then it's just going on forever and ever. And I'm just alone up there doing this. And then he just stops and he goes, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm just like, and he's like, explain this to me. He's like, just explain what you're doing. And I'm like, I explain this, and he goes, this is bullshit. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, this is horrible.
Yeah. Yo, legitimately, good teacher. Like, it's not, that's actually, like, helpful. I guess it would be nice if he gave you something constructive.
That guy was awesome.
But I think in, like, dude, I think in arts, and this is something in, like, creative fields, too, so many people, like, are so precious about having ideas or shot down. And I think it's so much worse. Like, what if you thought the wizard thing was promising and you kept working on it for a long time because you thought it was, like, so sometimes you just need...
You need someone to be like, this is horrible.
Yeah, and it's like, maybe, and in fairness, maybe they're wrong, but I do think that's, like, valuable. Like, I
stayed, and it would be like, first off, I stayed up to like 4 a.m. coming up with that. Because it's like, you put it off, you have like 1 week to make it up, and you're just stressed all week, just like...
yeah.
And then it's like, I'm sweating, sleeping 2 hours, and then
I need a deadline.
I'm on the train to Chelsea with like my fucking wizard shit in a bag on the train. I'm just like, there's no way this is going to be... There's no fucking way this is good. And then you're doing it, and you can feel it's not good. And then you can just feel how angry he is.
Was it different than bombing?
It was more hurtful than bombing. It wasn't different than bombing.
No, but I see that because...
You're on stage and you're sweating.
Yeah,
and
you're
like,
very vulnerable. My least favorite type of way to bomb is when I say a silly joke and it gets nothing and I feel like such an idiot. And it's because when I say like a silly joke, it's like you're sort of... I think it's vulnerable in a way to be really silly, and then people being like... Dude, what the fuck?
You're a buffoon.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck?
It's like that feeling, when you make a joke in front of your uncle or something.
Oh, my favorite bomb, my like most memorable bomb was like, did I tell you this one in Broadway? I think I did, where I was in the basement at Broadway, and it was like, I was 6 months into comedy, and I have this really stupid joke about the boys are back in town, where I start the joke. So I did it at my audition, and people laughed, because I started the joke, and it's like, what's your favorite song about boys being back in town?
Yeah.
And then usually people might giggle at that, but then at this show, it was packed out, but it was all like foreign European people, and I could hear on the tape recorder, like, them just being like, what is he talking about? I don't know what. And then
who are the boys?
You can see my soul leave my body, because I had another minute of that joke, and also not other jokes to do.
6 months into comedy.
I wasn't in a place where I could pivot to another, like, I was in a place where, like, I practiced that. Oh my God. That was, do you have a memorable bomb like that where you just like...
So that bar that had the open mic, one thing that was cool about it is it's very famous in New Orleans. Famous open mic. And it's packed like every Wednesday night.
That's so sick. I wish there was some,
But it was so scary starting out, because
of course.
Like, none of the comedians are nice to you when you first start. And then it's like a big crowd, and they're not like that loose of a crowd, because the host isn't like a warm.
Yeah.
He like runs it like...
But also, I can imagine, this is Lafayette. This is
New Orleans.
This was in New Orleans? Okay,
yeah.
Okay. But it's a different type of comedy. So I'm sure, like, the audience at an open mic like that, they have to be battered, kind of, with just, like, some crazy jokes.
But I wrote out like 2 whole pages in pencil about something about if we exhumed Ben Franklin and he could see the modern world.
Oh, wow. That is such a white man dream.
I was really going for it. No, I thought it was...
No, I know. It's like a sketch idea almost that you wrote out, and you were describing what the sketch would be.
Trying to tell Ben Franklin about refrigerators or something. Yeah. And then I remember on stage, and I'm just talking about digging up Ben Franklin in a graveyard, and it's total silence. And I just see one guy in the crowd going... And it was like a 3-page joke, and it was like we had 3 minutes on stage, took the whole 3 minutes to explain, and then like the punchline was just like, and then you'd like turn on a light bulb and he'd be like, whoa. And then I heard maybe one person go
I like it. To be clear, I like it.
it was like one of those things where you're like trying to be so deep right away. You're like, it was like some political
No,
statement.
man.
Like,
I think you could do the same joke in 2 seconds. Like, this is my impression of Ben Franklin sing a light bulb. Whoa!
That would be funny. It's not 3 pages written out in pencil.
I think that's like but I think, and this is another thing like you find in like writing, I think you get more with comedy is you realize, oh, that like 1-page joke is actually a 2-line joke.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to realize that like, oh, the real skill of it is recognizing all the stuff you shouldn't use, kind of.
Yes.
I think is like, because, and it's so interesting, and I find this where you get very attached to tags that get chuckles instead of laughs, and then finally you get rid of them and you're like, oh,
I was just holding it back. Totally.
Yeah, for no reason. It's like not because it's information or anything. But I do, like, after my bomb, like, did you think about quitting when it went that far?
Yeah,
Did it occur to you?
When I was in that stage, I would do like that mic. I would have my heart broken, and then I would wait like 3 weeks and do it again.
Yeah.
And then at some point, someone told me about some mic that happened at like midnight on Sunday at this place called Igor's Buddha Belly, which is a bar and laundromat and grill. And the laundromat, and like something about how stupid that bar was, it made it, I would go there and try stuff out and it would be horrible, but I wouldn't care because you're telling jokes at a bar laundromat at midnight on a Sunday.
No, you need to find a place where you're comfortable
and then
being
I would
not funny. Yeah.
Be not funny on Wednesday, but I would be more funny than if I had.
Yeah. No, I think for me, I remember after I bombed at Broadway, I was having like an existential crisis, and it was, Juju Forevery? He's like, hey, you met Juju? He's at Freddy's. He's not there as often.
I don't know Juju.
So he's a funny comic, but he works at Broadway in Greenwich. But he he pulled me aside because I like talked to him afterwards outside, and I was just like, holy shit, I need to rewrite everything. Have I ever been funny? What am I doing? And then he like stopped me. He's like, Dan, calm down. You're funny. Sometimes people just won't like you. And that switched something in me where I was just like, oh, because it's kind of this like because I do think sometimes you can micro in your head calculate, oh, I should have done this, but sometimes it's okay to dismiss something as just like, this was a bad set, they didn't like me, I'll try again. Like they're
just not gonna like you.
It's hard. Yeah, dude. And I don't know why it worked, because I don't know why it like hit me like a ton of bricks, because it's such like a simple thing, but it's just like, oh yeah, they just like,
I feel that way as a hosting the show a lot. I'm like, I feel like people hate you as a host.
Well,
is that true? Do you think that?
I think it depends
when you host
on
the show.
If you have a bad set at the top.
That's true.
I guess it depends.
And you're like the whole show, you're like, they would just want me to hit.
I think if you are, but I do think if you're both a bad host, but also you do bad crowd work, they'll hate you because they'll dread having to maybe get like tortured between sets.
Fucking talk to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess what's your opinion on what makes a good host?
Someone who like makes everyone feel like it's okay to be having fun.
Yeah.
But not forcing you to do anything.
Way. Yeah.
I feel like the audience, there's nothing worse than when a host comes up and is like, yeah! And like the crowd is like, not yeah. They're just like,
okay, let's try again.
Do we have enough energy for 5 more comics?
Do we have enough energy? All right, it's like, Jesus, because it feels like
an assault.
Yeah, like people got sentenced to this. My favorite.
It's too awkward for them to leave.
My favorite smaller thing a host has done. A guy named AJ, I did a show, and he at a whiskey cellar, and he's like, when I bring you up, I'm gonna fist bump you. I'm like, immediately at ease, because I think my hit rate of getting a handshake or fist bump right, it's like 350, which is great in the majors, but not. There's nothing that throws off your momentum if the gang gets set more than just bumbling the handshake so bad and then wondering if you have to address it, because I don't know if people notice or care at all.
It feels bad. It feels bad when someone goes for the handshake and you're going for the bump and you're like, I'm a dick.
And then you switch.
I should be able to shake someone's hand.
Yeah.
And feel like I'm an asshole.
This
is impersonal.
I'm becoming much more okay with the muffin. just when it happens, just let it happen. Just stay.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, we should get back to...
Sorry, you have questions. Tell me what you got. Yeah.
Well, we don't have to. It's not like a real...
No, I don't know, man.
But I want to get back to writing.
Okay, yeah.
I do want to talk about your writing.
Yeah.
First of all, I was like, what did you do at the HuffPost?
So I like did my first job there. It was on the sports section, and like a lot of what I did like some opinion columns, but a lot of what I did was like I did like aggregate.
You did the sports section of the HuffPost?
Yeah, there was sports, but it was just like,
Does
but
anyone
basically,
read that?
but yeah, it was mostly, well, the whole thing with HuffPost was like social. They were the first one that focused on social media, but also like SEO is a thing, like doing well on Google. They were the first people that were like, oh, if you do well on Google, people click on your thing. And like
them in BuzzFeed.
So yeah, but a lot of people, a lot of people who were like the people at HuffPo moved to BuzzFeed, and kind of, so that's where the natural transference was kind of, and then all the people went to TikTok and nothing mattered anymore.
Were you making listicles?
I did some listicles. I
Top
did
10
like
sports baseball players.
I still did. I wrote a lot of a lot of opinion stuff. I had a lot of freedom to sort of do whatever I wanted, which was nice. Like I wrote like a long feature. My first esports thing, I covered a tournament in like Providence, which was like wild, sort of. So what was
the esport?
It was all they did. This tournament they had Halo, which they had.
Classic.
StarCraft 2 was the big one at the time, and then League of Legends was just starting.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by esports, even though I'm not like just because by the subculture of it, mostly because I've been a sports nerd my whole life, and as soon as I saw esports, I was like, oh, this isn't gonna go anywhere. Like the people who like this thing are gonna keep liking this thing.
Yeah,
it's like a subculture that I thought was super.
I don't think you're converting like people who like hockey to like watching esports, but there's always going to be someone who just can watch League of Legends streaming.
Exactly. So I did the sports at HuffPost, and then I moved over to the opinion section my last like 2 or 3 years.
What were some of your opinions? What did you have an opinion on?
I wrote a ton about politics, and it was always like, I wrote a lot about politics, but it was always satirical. So like I remember it was like after Obamacare got passed, and it was like people said they wanted to move to other countries, so I wrote a column about, well, here are the countries you can move to if you don't want healthcare. Somalia, and stuff like that. I think but it was so funny because I got a lot of enjoyment from it, but I think once I stopped doing it and took like a step back, I realized, oh, I'm genuinely just pandering to people who think the exact same thing as me.
They're just yeah.
And like I was really getting like, whoa, I'm doing so, and so that was. It's all to say, I'm glad I don't focus on politics anymore. It's not.
It's kind of exhausting.
It is. It does seem mostly just kind of exhausting, particularly in America, where it's too much of. It is just we're too well trained in how to support a team to run a two-party system in America. That's sort of my opinion.
It's about winning.
Yeah, kind of. It's like, so that's why you need to have more than
the tribalism, the nobility of your team.
Yeah, that really is.
I've been still, I truly believe in my teams. The UL Lafayette Raging Cajuns, the New Orleans Saints. I'm like, I know they're more morally right. Than the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Let's talk about the morality of Bountygate. What were your thoughts?
My thoughts?
Here's the thing: is like, you think you can sneak this stuff past me?
No. But this is a great point. I truly do not care. I listened to the Greg Williams tapes where he's talking about like literally killing other quarterbacks, and he's like, kill them, and I'm like, you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet.
I guess it is.
I remember winning the Super Bowl and the positive feelings of them winning the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
Break Brett. I don't even like Brett Favre. He sends dick pics to people.
You see, that's the other
to unsuspecting women.
This is the useful thing about NFL fandom specifically, is that everyone has bullshit.
Exactly.
So there's really like, you can bring up any team, and I can think of a specific bad. But I do think the Saints. I will say, being in New Orleans, one thing I learned was just how big the Saints-Falcons rivalry is as a thing. Like, people seemed really into that as a thing. Is that a construction I was missing?
No, I think it's because New Orleans and Atlanta are like have They're all kind of similar cities, and they're kind of rivals.
That's
economically.
Yeah.
They're a lot of things.
That's like every rivalry is so funny to me because it's always the people who are the most similar.
Yeah.
They just despise each other.
Exactly.
It's like that's all it's built on. Like I bet you cannot stand UL Monroe, those Warhawks.
Oh yeah, I don't. That's a rivalry. UL Monroe's so bad.
So
though,
who's like was that who are the Raging Cajuns rivals?
I'd say the team that
you get up for Tulane. You play Tulane.
No, LSU probably is the team that I can't stand LSU.
No, but like, who are your rivals? Don't say LSU.
UL's
yeah,
rivals.
don't say LSU is your rival. I'm sorry. I think the face I made was so fucking rude.
That's a very hurtful thing you just did right there. It's probably like fucking Appalachian State or something. It's some other.
It doesn't really sound like a rival to me.
UL sports is really irrelevant. I just enjoy them.
No, I think it's.
I guess it is UL Monroe, but like in terms of like a team they're always vying with for Sun Belt supremacy.
Yeah.
It's probably.
Who you got there? Troy? You probably hate Troy.
Texas State.
Texas State. They're GJ.
Coastal Carolina.
The Chanticleers.
The Chanticleers are fun.
They were more fun when they had their old coach who went to Liberty. Honestly, we need to stop because I'm.
We're gonna get off the rails.
Yeah, no, I'm. When we get talking college football, I will.
Will be heavily edited.
It should be.
But okay, so we should. I guess we could talk about sports writing though.
No, yeah.
So you started writing.
So I started
for HuffPost,
and then I ended up getting.
Is that how you ended up going to the Players Tribune? Was that like your next thing?
No, it was actually kind of a. I was at this is actually very funny so I was at HuffPost, and then it was owned by AOL, and AOL started. And this is like such a crazy story. So AOL wanted to start like an afternoon streaming talk show, and I'd written like funny columns for HuffPost, so they poached me from HuffPost to like, hey, you want to be on the writing staff for this streaming t-shirt
of AOL.
Yeah, and I was working with people who
AOL,
that's so many did back then. It was like always a huge part of their business, people paying for email. And like I went to this like new like streaming TV show, and what was funny is like one of the guest hosts for it was Mark Norman, and we ran like
a streaming TV show.
Yeah, it was like ahead of its time. It was like so no one really. But anyway, we did one live Halloween contest, and he's just like a New York comic. He said a lot of very offensive things.
Yeah,
and he ended up getting fired. But also like the next week, all of us got laid off at the same time. Like it was 3 weeks after all of us got hired.
What was the show about?
It was just like it was supposed to be like a talk show type of thing, but he was supposed to be, I think, at the time a temporary host because they were still finding, and instead they just canned the whole thing. He ended up okay, I think, but it was one of those. It was this very useful thing because I was like 23 and my whole identity was wrapped up in like, oh, my job, blah blah blah, and then when I got laid off in the same room with like 30 other people who most of them were more experienced, and so many of their reaction was just like, oh, here we go again, like kind of. And I was just like, it was I'm always glad it happened at that age because it was a helpful thing in terms of learning like, oh yeah, you can be let go,
they don't
you
care,
can do a good job,
you're not a star,
you gotta. And yeah, so I got laid off, and then I just feverishly applied for jobs, and I got a part-time like temp role at Sports Illustrated, and then I turned that into a full-time role within like Sports Illustrated is where I always wanted to work. So as soon as I got my foot in the door, I worked so hard. I went like ham for like, and I ended up getting a full-time role, and I was finding some success, and that while I was there was when I got a
writing for the Extra Mustard section.
Yes, Extra Mustard, their culture section, covering hot. I did. I used to do like the minor league concession item of the week. It was always hard hitting stuff.
That's awesome.
I guess
I love that.
I've always liked writing just like weird sports stuff. So I did like a thing for the magazine about the 25 like best sports villains of all time. Number 2, people were mad about this, which is I understand why. You know the movie Brian's Song?
No, I
It's
know
just
the
about a
name.
football player that dies, and I said the number 2 villain was cancer. And I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know why they shouldn't have let that one through.
They let
it through. But then and then I ended up. I was like, I got hired, and then
That's the number 2 villain.
Yes.
What's the number 1 villain?
I forgot who it was. I feel like
You should have made that number 1.
I'm trying to remember who it was. It was either like Ivan Drago. It might have been Shooter McGavin was one of my favorite ones. I should remember number 1, but number 2.
I like how number 1 isn't cancer though.
Yeah, number 1. No.
Number 2.
No.
It's cancer.
What if it was AIDS? I don't know. Bad power rankings.
So wait, what is the best minor league? What are some good minor league concession items? I love minor league sports.
I actually have a great story about this because like I remember one week I wrote about the minor league, the concession of the week was like a beer milkshake. And it was our first, like, I remember I wrote a sentence and I was like, this is our first liquid concession of the week, but don't worry, we aren't schlocking some bullshit like Michelob Ultra. And then, like, 2 days later, I get sent this long email. I'm on this long email chain that, like, was from, like, the marketing people at Sports Illustrated. And apparently Michelob Ultra was, like, a huge sponsor of Sports Illustrated. And I had no idea. And Sports Illustrated had to give them, like, a bunch of, like, ads as a baked good because I fucked up and they're like, I think they were just like, are you willing to change the art, like, change the statement? I was like, dude, I don't give a shit. I just thought of
Shinerbach.
Yeah, literally, I was just trying to think of the worst beer I could. And I'm sorry.
The most disgusting light beer.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I landed on Michelob Ultra. So yeah, I just had more. I guess I got very lucky. Also, I think one of the reasons why I got the Sports Illustrated gig more than the Huffington Post work was because I did like headlines for The Onion, and they liked that part of it.
Yeah.
Just, I think having a expertise as like a cross section of comedy and sports has always been like my main wheelhouse.
Dude, I'm just thinking. I used to watch the New Orleans Baby Cakes a lot. It's the New Orleans minor league baseball team.
That's a great name.
The New Orleans Baby Cakes.
You could be making it up, and I would never know.
A AAA affiliate of the Marlins.
Yeah.
Worst fan experience of all time because it's like the stadium is like uncovered. New Orleans summer. It's like a parking lot. It's watching baseball in a parking lot. And these are the AAA players for the Marlins.
So that means they probably make more than the players on the Marlins.
Yeah. But it's like disgusting. No player is worth watching. And the stadium was always like totally empty, but except for like a few drunk people.
Yeah.
I remember I would always sit behind the plate because it's like $10 to sit behind the plate.
Hell yeah.
And it's funny, you sit with the scouts. There'd be scouts and then like me and then like 4 drunk guys. And I remember one game, they were playing like the Iowa Cubs or something. And there was like a drunk guy in the upper deck. He was clearly blackout drunk, but he had memorized all the major league stats of the players who had been called up from the Cubs and been sent back down.
It's so good.
And then every time they went up to bat,
73.
Jason Brenner. 0 for 13, 4 errors. It's a wonder you didn't stick. And it's like so quiet in the stadium that you could just see Jason Brenner be like,
nah, man. There is, and that is a true rush that I can't even say I've even really experienced, but saying a funny thing out loud at the ball game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best thing about baseball. You can really heckle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Truly cruel, mean stuff. That's one thing, that is one thing about baseball. But yeah, I like, I don't know. I was always super into like, sports, and then, yeah, I was only at Sports Illustrated for like a year. I thought I was going to stay there forever, but the Players Tribune was like a weird enough opportunity that I sort of jumped at it.
Yeah, so that's like, it's the whole thing is it's just player stories. First person player stories.
Yeah, so it basically like similar to how you read like athlete autobiographies. It was like taking that model and doing it into more like a shorter form. Which was still just like long form interviews. And
it was founded by Derek Jeter.
Yeah. He was the.
Do you know Derek Jeter?
Are
you buds?
I
with
can
Derek?
technically say I know Derek Jeter. I wouldn't say we're. I wouldn't say
This
we're
was
old
my
friends.
main question of
No,
the entire interview.
yeah, sure.
This has all been leading up to this.
No, like here, what I can say is like, yeah, I met him like I was around him like quite a few times, just like working there, and he's just like a genuinely good dude. A great, I guess like I guess the thing that was like very interesting about working there, it was like not just him, but working with other when I like met other athletes, and you get to see that they did really admire him and like the way he like carried himself and did stuff. And I think like I know it's not fun because it's so diplomatic, but I just like he was a really good dude and genuine, like very very funny. Like I only have like good things to say.
So you like would interview players and then kind of write out their story, essentially.
It was sort of like it was really like a case by case basis. It was mostly like I would either get assigned something or someone would want to write something, and then my first question would always be like, "Are you a comfortable writer?" Like, is this because there's some athletes who did like do journaling or were journalism majors, and in that case I'd have them like send me a copy of the article and I'd work with them in that way. And then if they weren't comfortable writing, I would usually do a really long interview and then structure a story based on that, and then we basically work in a Google Doc together, which was always the most surreal thing is like being in a Google Doc and then seeing like Johnny Damon.
Yeah.
Or just like left a comment.
Little icon.
Yeah.
It's a koala.
Yeah, but it was much more about like the actual like interviewing. It was, I guess it's all to say, it was an interesting inverse of when I was at HuffPost, where I was like trying to write these like viral political columns to get as much like many eyeballs as possible on my writing. When I did this, when I worked at Players Tribune, it switched entirely where my entire focus was like, okay, this guy's kind of trusting me with this intimate story that he doesn't tell a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I want to do a really good job so that he likes it and the people he shows it to like it, and then the fans really like it. So it was both really cool but also really, really hard.
Well, what was so hard? What was hard about it? It's just
it was like, well, I just like did a lot of these articles were usually like 2,000, 3,000 words. So it was like very long.
Yeah.
Like very long form. It took a lot. There were a lot of steps to getting it done. And I also took it very personally in a way that I had never done with my work. And I think that was one of the things. And I should say, like, concurrently, it was while I was working at Players Tribune that it really started eating at me that I wasn't doing stand-up in a way. Like, the whole time I wasn't doing stand-up, and I'm not sure, have you ever taken a break from stand-up before? Or like a longer?
For COVID,
Yeah.
A year.
Yeah. When you weren't doing it, well, I'm not sure if it was different on COVID, but like the whole time I didn't do stand-up, I was like writing jokes, and I was always in my mind just like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing Yeah. I don't know.
I took a year off because, obviously everyone was taking a year off.
Yeah. Did you always know you'd come back to it?
I had been doing it for 1 year.
Okay.
And then COVID started. So it was a weird time where I was like, I could just not do it again.
Yeah.
Because I had acting and stuff already.
When did you move to New York?
2.5 years ago, 2.5, almost 3 years ago.
I had no. So I've known you almost the whole time.
Maybe.
A lot, like quite a while. I had no idea.
Yeah. 2.5 years ago, I did about 2.5 years of stand up in New Orleans, and then.
Yeah.
Been here for like 2.5 years.
I think like, so yeah, I was like, but anyway, I really. So I guess it was like a lot of work. It was also a lot of pressure and like wanting the things to come off well, but it wasn't
like some of the athletes just kind of dicks.
Whenever I get asked this,
in this setting.
I get asked this all the time, and my answer is always like they are representative of the general population.
Okay.
And also like where like some people are very nice, some people, but also, and this was something I did like I generally did keep in mind, and I try to keep and I think not enough people do this with celebrity. It's just like sometimes you genuinely do just catch someone on a bad day at a bad time, and I kind of just sometimes one of the things I liked about where I work because it was like their thing. If I was talking to a dude and I could tell he was like really distracted or he just like really wasn't into it, they were fine with me being like, hey, this is like sort of, if you don't want to do it, it's fine. It's no like skin off my back. But that's all I'll say. Yeah, if I had some people be awful to me, absolutely, dude. Like, yeah, just like, yeah, I've had some really bad experiences, but I wouldn't like specifically out anyone for being a dick necessarily. Fuck. I know it's not. I was
kind of hoping you'd be like Kevin Youkilis was.
Yeah, that would be great. And the truth is, like Kevin Youkilis, I never met him, but I'm sure he's like love. Like the truth is, like most of the athletes I met, they're pretty earnest, just like hardworking. Like they worked really hard to get what they want. They're pretty grateful. The people who surround them are often the worst.
Yeah, like agents.
Yeah, it's like it's not even necessarily agents, but also just like people who are like people who convince people who convince like backup offensive linemen that they need a publicist.
Yeah.
Or just like you need to get out there and be doing like
you should be doing Players Tribune articles.
Not even like that, or just like this is how like there are a lot of people. I think a lot of like athletes are earnestly trying to navigate the life in the best way they can, and there's a lot of pressures, and there are people who take advantage of them that maybe do make them bitter or force them to have walls in a way. So that was like what helped. One of the things I found really useful when I was interviewing, there were two like tricks I got, and one trick I use for crowd work, which is you get way more evocative answers from people when you ask them about things they don't like than things they do like. If you ask someone what their favorite food is or their favorite movie, they'll usually be like, Yeah. But if you ask someone what's your least favorite food or what's a food you hate, you get like, what's a movie you hate? You get like a much more interesting sort of picture of the person, as long as it's like an innocent thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like that was a big thing. And then the other thing I found very useful was like athletes, and this is something I found like the media isn't like, it's very stupid to ask an athlete, what were you thinking during that split-second decision you made using like instincts? It's like that's not super interesting for the most part. Usually if you can focus in on something that allows them to show that they're experts, they'll open up a lot more. So it's just like, what was the defensive coverage at this moment? Like, what's the hardest? Basically asking, like, everyone thinks you have a dream job. What's something about it that really sucks? That's really hard about it.
Yeah.
And that's how you start get people to open up a little bit.
Well, okay, what was your favorite interview?
My favorite interview, Gary Sheffield.
Gary Sheffield.
You know Gary Sheffield?
Course.
Yeah. He
swing guy.
This was Derek Jeter hosted like a celebrity golf tournament, and I got to interview Gary Sheffield, and it was supposed to be like I think it was supposed to be like a 30-minute interview, and he went on for like 2 hours, and he was truly in this place where like he's both like he's been very successful, he's made a lot of money, but he also didn't really give a shit. Like he was fine going there, being completely open, and like it was very easy to tell like why he was so successful is the best way of saying it. In a way beyond just being insanely talented. Like I didn't know his cousin was Doc Gooden.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like he like lived with like he moved to Tampa. His parents had him live in Tampa so he could be closer to like better athletes.
Yeah,
and he said he used to practice like hitting against Doc Gooden like in their backyard, and if he got a hit off Doc Gooden, when he was 14, he could throw it like 95 miles an hour. He'd throw the ball in his ribs.
Yeah,
and like that was my favorite individual like story he told, which I think is very relevant to comedy in like a crossover way, was like he talked about how he like at one point he missed like a little league game so he could watch a Doc pitch, and then his little league coach like banned him from playing in a game, and then Gary reacted by trying to attack him with a bat or something like that. So Gary got banned from the Little League, and they ended up going to the Little League World Series, and he wasn't part of it.
Yeah.
And like Gary held this resentment for a long time, and they ended up meeting the coach again years later when the field was being named after Gary. And he was just like, I bet you feel bad about like that. And then the coach like didn't have any recollection of it at all. He had no idea what Gary Sheffield was talking. And it was like,
coached a lot of people I don't know.
But it's all saying, I think some people need the chip on their shoulder, even whether it's real or perceived.
Yeah.
In order to like push themselves.
I don't think anyone. Yeah, like when someone slights you, I feel like usually that person has no idea they've slighted you at all.
Yeah, and
you're just like fucking.
It's so easy to build this very huge narrative in your head.
I love doing this.
Yeah, well, this is like, and I think this was always the thing I came around to, or I not even came around to, but I always like pondered is like, is it good? Would you rather be as successful as you ever imagine in your wildest dreams, but in your back of your mind you always have like you're angry about what you're not getting or about being slighted, or so is like it better to or like or just like, is there something to finding like being content? I guess I'll say, and I say this probably as like a cope, as being like a very happy open, like I'm a pretty content open mic comedian. Like I feel very lucky to get to go to mics. I get to meet you and hang out with like dudes who, like people who do this stuff.
This is a great perspective to have. I could tell some people are so sad that they're there.
Yeah, well,
they're like, well, this is fun.
I think
you can just have fun.
And I think part of it is because I did the thing where I was like, when I worked at Players Arena, I had 5 years where I interviewed close to every athlete I ever wanted to, like that I had on my wish list. I traveled a ton, and but doing stand-up, I felt there was something that felt like a hole because I didn't have the creative outlet. And doing stand-up and like now I do more freelance work, and like I still do some work for Players Tribune. I do a lot of work in like esports, but finding time to just do like stand up, I guess it's all say I think I'm lucky because it's almost like I've lived two different lives in a way. So it's like, I guess it's all say I could see a world where like theoretically something dumb happens, and if I were to be able to do stand up comedy as a job, I know there'd be things about it I hate, or things about it that really annoy me, no matter how successful I am, and I think I got that perspective from my previous job. Yeah.
When I said Eminem earlier, I was just thinking that he's one of those people who's so successful. When all his songs are so angry. Yeah. You're like, Eminem, why are you still angry?
A happy Eminem song would be weird. Yeah. Is that what you want? Also, can we talk about this? Is this part of it?
Well, I don't know when I got this. This is the keys.
Is this DJ always Khaled on here as part of the thing? No, you just put it here?
I'm trying new stuff.
You're just trying things?
Willie's new. I'm just trying to bring the set alive a little bit.
Willie looks like he's looking at me sort of disappointed. He doesn't, I'll be honest, he doesn't not look like my dad in this. He does.
What I like about Willie is a lot of people don't know is Willie didn't get famous until he was like 45.
Oh, that's sick.
He tried to kill himself before he was famous.
Oh, man.
And he didn't.
Oh,
and now everyone's like, oh, he's the guy who smokes weed and has a beard.
Oh, man. Yeah. So he was 40. Man, that's such, as an older stoner, what an inspiration.
Exactly. Yeah, he was just like a horrible alcoholic.
I'm sure around 42, 43, it was looking pretty bleak when he was sucking all that. And then you become...
He's just writing songs that no one listened to.
Do you want me to read a random excerpt from
I would
the
love
keys?
that.
Okay, let's see.
I think I got that from a free library. Maybe my girlfriend picked it up.
I still think you might have paid too much. Is it plausible that DJ Khaled can read? Why would he like
this is fully ghostwritten.
We're talking about ghostwriting. Okay.
But it reads like just something he would say. Maybe he dictated it to a ghostwriter. Okay.
Here we go. So, social media is for positivity, to spread fan love, capital FLUV.
Yes.
Not to downgrade people publicly.
He has a lot of expressions he comes back to. Something fan love.
It confuses me sometimes that grown men... I can't not read it. It confuses me sometimes that grown men and grown women put each other on blast. They're starting beef, talking about all the types of personal matters and sensitive business, and people who aren't even part of the conversation stop being dragged in. Random people weigh in with their unsolicited opinions. Small issues blow up. I can't imagine a bigger waste of time. Who has all the energy to stir things up? People who aren't successful and people who aren't working hard. That's who.
That accent went all over the place.
Yeah, I'm not good. That's why I don't do accents, and I don't do...
That was...
Speaking of all over the place accent, have you been watching this season of White Lotus with Parker Posey?
No, I haven't watched White Lotus.
She's trying to do Southern, and she's floating
You went from like it started out like you sounded almost like DJ Khaled, and then it became like an offensive black accent.
Oh yeah,
which we don't. But then it became like British.
At no point.
And then it was like Southern. Then it was like Colonel
I like
Sanders.
I like doing accents the way. Have you ever had a suicide from a soda machine where you get a little bit of each thing? That's how I do accents. I like to. If you offend everybody, do you offend nobody?
Exactly.
That's my favorite DJ Khaled clip I've ever seen is this video. It's like the Bob Marley estate sent him a guitar, and we're like, this is Bob Marley's guitar. He wanted to share it with you, and DJ Khaled takes the guitar and he starts strumming it, and it becomes immediately clear he has no idea how to play guitar.
He clearly knows nothing about music.
He knows how to play guitar. He's just like going like this and looking at the camera like he knows what he's doing, and I've never seen a better example of just faking it.
Yeah, this is why I love DJ Khaled, is because no one really knows why he's famous.
Oh, to the extent that I almost wonder, do you think we're in a Truman Show for DJ Khaled? He's the subject and we're all surrounding.
Do you remember when he was briefly big on Snapchat?
Oh,
there was like an era where he was like, when Snapchat was a big thing, he would make Snapchats and Snap stories.
Oh yeah, he almost died at sea on his jet ski. Yeah,
but he was lost at sea, and he was like stranded.
Oh yeah. If he had died, legend forever.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. And he had put it on Snapchat.
Yeah.
They were all just like Snapchats of him like watering his garden, and then he'd water his lion statues.
Yeah.
He was just wasting water. It was always just like him fire hosing his plants and then spraying it at the lion.
Yeah,
and then he'd go, "Lion!" It was a great time.
Yeah, America was always great.
Yeah. The point of this is America was always great. I don't know what else.
What else you got for me?
I don't know. What DJ Khaled got me in a
whole... I'm sorry. That's me. That's me.
DJ Khaled has me in a whole different mind state.
Yeah.
We could... Okay, so yeah, you contribute for The Onion.
Yeah.
Are you like, it's just like freelance? Are you a full-time employee?
Oh no, it's freelance. It's always been freelance. I literally
Do you go into the Onion offices?
No.
Okay.
I used to, like, when I started in 2011, and when they were in New York, they're actually close to where I worked in HuffPost, so I got to go to some of the sports meetings, and those were like, it was very funny. It was like the toughest open mic ever because you had to basically stand up, read your headlines, and if people liked
it... You're just going around a table.
Yeah. And, like, it was all just, like, if people liked it, they wouldn't even really laugh. They'd just be like, yeah.
That's a good one.
And then there'd be, kind of... And they'd only laugh if something was bad, honestly. If something was so bad that they hated it so much, they'd laugh at it. But it was, like, what... Onion headlines helped me mostly with as like a comedy writer is like you always send in like 10 with the expectation that like maybe 1 or 2 will make it to the next round, and of those 1 or 2, if you're lucky, 1 will make it in a month. Like it's just like they make it so you're always writing new jokes. You can't be precious about jokes.
Yeah.
Which is
so this is interesting to me.
Yeah.
You were a contributor to The Onion. Which I think to probably a lot of people, especially not in New York, they would think like, oh, that's a dream job.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd probably just have like some kind of rosy view of The Onion. Is it fun?
Oh.
Do you enjoy... I mean, like, honestly, do you enjoy writing for The Onion? Is it just like a job?
Oh.
Do you feel like lucky you're writing for The Onion? Because I could very easily see having a job like that and you just like totally take it for granted.
I think if it was something I did 9 to 5, 5 days a week, I think I'm sure I would. But because it's something where I write the jokes like once a week and I've been doing it for so long, I do enjoy it as when I first moved to New York, I did it and I wasn't making much money at all, so I felt a lot of pressure. I needed to get stuff in because I wanted to get money for it.
I think people would also assume if you write for The Onion, you're like rich or something.
No, I guess it's all you get paid based on what makes it in.
Okay.
So if you're like a freelancer. So it's definitely not a job.
You're paid
in that
per
sense.
Thing they use.
Yeah. So if you want to make money, you have to get stuff in. You aren't just like, you get to submit jokes.
Yeah.
That's like the thing you're lucky to get to do.
Do you get residuals?
No, that'd be incredible.
Like when you have a headline,
Yeah,
do you
no,
get something
that'd
for?
be great. I don't even know how that would work.
I don't know. It'd be like
For
something
the
about how many views
the
it
point
gets.
oh oh 007 cents per. Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows how to monetize media well enough for that to work, but I think it's mostly. I started doing it. I sent in like a packet out of college, and I didn't get the internship, but I ended up just like they needed sports contributors, so that's when I started. And I think a lot of people burn out on it, but I just kept doing it. Like I just kept sending them in and sort of stuck around, kind of.
So what's the structure for freelancing? Is it like you just email them once a week with a bunch of pitches? How is it?
Essentially, like once a week, you send.
You have a contact, like you're an
Yeah.
You're an undercover
They
cop.
send you a form essentially, and
Okay.
you send in your jokes, and then you get an email with like how the meeting went and like what jokes they chose. So oftentimes, like you're usually just like waiting for the email back to see how you did.
How many jokes have you gotten in?
I couldn't. Like, yeah. I
Is it
honestly have no
a week?
idea.
Do you get jokes in weekly or
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. That would be like.
Are you getting a lot of O for weeks?
Yeah. No. Well, I guess the thing is like every contributor would tell you they have a lot of O for weeks.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like kind of the thing. And you have to, but I guess that you have to be okay with like the ego shot of being like, okay, I'll write more jokes next week. Not
Yeah.
being like, I can't believe they hated.
They didn't take any of them?
Yeah. Like my favorite recurring like dumb Edgar headline that has never made it in that I like is referee turns false start hand signal into a little dance.
They don't like it.
Oh no, they don't like that.
How many times have you submitted that one?
No comment.
75.
The answer is they've never liked it. They don't like it. No, I don't.
Do you like just wait a few weeks before submitting it
I
again?
honestly don't resubmit. Like even doing it like 11 years, I don't really like resubmit jokes because the real challenge. Because I guess the reality is like you can't. You don't do it with the expectation that any will make it in, and it's more like how can I stretch my brain to think of a different perspective on this? And I will say, sometimes when I'm feeling a little like stuck in stand-up, I will look at old Onion headlines I've submitted that didn't make it and being like, oh, is there something can I turn this into a bit in some way, kind of.
Yeah. What's the office like there? I'm kind of imagining one of my favorite jokes from The Simpsons is when Bart goes to Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
And like he's like expecting it to be like all wild and crazy, and he goes in.
Yeah.
And it's just like a regular boring office. Then he's like leaves all sad, but it turns out he went to the wrong office, and the Mad Magazine office is wild and crazy.
What I can tell you, well, I mean, like I only went there, like they moved to Chicago like 10 years ago.
By the way, that's not a good question. I just wanted to bring up The Simpsons.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's all to say it was informative where I was shown right away that like it's like you can create a joyful product, but the process of creating it can be closer to like carpentry or like where, and I think that's like a big thing with joke writing. And when I'm writing a column or writing something like not related to comedy, usually I'll know it's done because it feels like I have the beats I need for it to feel like a complete meal almost.
Yeah.
I guess which seems like a vague term.
Yeah.
But that's something that like you learn with like writing jokes for The Onion. I have a good sense of like pacing wise what a headline should sound like, even if they don't like it. And like
like the referee dance sounds like an Onion headline.
Yeah. It's just formatting wise, and also and this is something else in stand up that's like I think good for Onion, where you put the funny part. Like, is the thing that makes people laugh, is it the last thing you say? Like, rather than the first thing you say?
Yeah.
What word helps the whole joke come together, and where do you put that word is, like, such, like, a micro, small thing. But it can be, like, I'm not sure, you've probably had some of those things, like, jokes that, like, everything changes just because you move this thing here and this thing. Yeah, which is why I describe it as carpentry, in a way. Fitting pieces together as much as like being creative.
Yeah, you're like, this is really boring in the moment, but when it's published, you're like,
yeah, kind of. And it's also just the whole thing with writing, and this was something I found like sort of exhausting in a way when I like at Players Tribune when I was pumping out a ton of articles. Is that like you publish something, you get the high of people liking it, people being like, oh, I really like that, and then like literally a day later, it's like, all right, where's the next thing?
Yeah,
and like
that's interesting.
it's hard with stand up. It's nice where
you get to reuse the stuff you like.
Yeah, I've realized like like when people are like, "What's your type 5?" I think it can change on any. I think your type 5 can change on any given night. Honestly, just based on
I've never
like,
used the same jokes as a type 5. I don't
yeah, it's like because I think it has to be your type 5 is both your best jokes, but also the jokes you're excited to say because you're gonna have the energy you need for those to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what anything else you want to cover?
How have we been doing? How long have we been talking?
We've been talking for an hour 10. I
That's
feel
good.
like
10. You can cover anything else, yeah.
10, 15 more minutes.
Yeah, whatever. I'm here. I'm not going to the comic strip. I'm never coming back.
What is your favorite sport?
College football.
Football.
It's always been college football.
Did sports writing? We moved on from this.
No, it's fine. But
does sports writing make you hate sports at all? Do you still just like enjoy what? Can you watch like any sport? Like, do you watch cricket if you see it on ESPN3?
No.
I do that sometimes.
Like I will watch weird sports, but I won't specifically. Like I'll watch. Oh yeah, of course. Like I'll watch Spike Ball if it's on, or like I'll watch the Ocho stuff. But I do. So I started like watching sports probably when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it was like almost. And I think at most kids, I was like, my dad likes sports, so it's how I talk to my dad. I hang out with my dad, and he'd watch the Astros, and I would hang out and watch so I learned everything about the Astros.
Yeah.
And then I learned everything about.
It was miserable for so long.
Oh yeah, but I just learned everything about every sport. I just started watching sports all the time, and I started reading books about sports history.
I did that. I read baseball history books.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
I just want to, but I guess the thing was just like I retained it all in a way that I didn't retain other stuff.
Yeah.
And then I subscribed. I guess as I'll say, it's like I subscribed to Sports Illustrated, and I started even like when I was like, I remember when I was like 9 or 10 years old, I was on like Yahoo. I was in AOL chat rooms arguing about baseball and stuff.
That's crazy.
Like that's when I started doing fantasy sports, and I didn't even realize. So yeah,
online with people you didn't know.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And I guess it never occurred to me. Yeah, I was born in Houston, and I played Little League and stuff. And I remember when I was like 8 or 9 years old, like I played on teams with kids who ended up playing in the minors or playing. So I knew I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Like I knew, and that was like when I was like, I need to become a sports writer.
Sports Illustrated. I used to have Sports Illustrated as a kid. That's such a good magazine. Yeah. Do you still read it?
No, I don't think a lot. I think a lot of people do, and that was the problem. Well, I guess it's also, and this is what made like I think magazines or a lot of things is it was habitual, right? Like you look forward to it coming
every
in the
week.
Mail every week, and it was there, and like
this is pre-iPhone scrolling. It's awesome to have weekly content.
It was. I think now because you spend so much time reading little snippets all the time, the novelty of having all the stories come to you just like isn't. It just didn't hit the same after a while.
Yeah.
And I think
you just go, nah, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
And I think that was one of the things that was surreal. Like by the time I got to SI, it was on its sort of like decline. There were a lot of layoffs, and there were people who had been there when it was like more successful, and you could see that they were beaten down. And I was in a place where I was like starting, and I was like young and so excited to be there and felt so lucky. And that I won't say it jaded me, but it was like informative that like, oh, you mean everyone working at Sports Illustrated isn't the happiest person you've ever met in your life? Whoa!
Did your parents let you keep the swimsuit issue?
Yes. I think it's mostly because they didn't. And my parents never put many restrictions on anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't.
My parents let me keep it, but they were like, kind of like, we're being cool.
Oh.
They were like, we're going to let you have the swimsuit issue, but just know that we know you're a little pervert.
God.
which is funny.
Yeah, I don't even.
It's a weird approach.
The swimsuit issue, the first one I remember definitively was Tyra Banks, which I think was 96.
Yeah, that was. How old are you? You're a little older than me. Let's not go there. You're at least 5 years older than me.
Yeah, I'm 36 now.
36. Oh, I'm 30.
Yeah.
Not that much older. 96 issue though.
Oh yeah.
You were young.
Yeah, dude.
I got Sports Illustrated when I was like 11 or 12. So
Yeah, no, that's us.
it was like Kate Upton, I think.
Yeah, no, that's another. No,
That's like the second one I got.
Another. That was a funny part about working at Sports Illustrated though, was that we were on the same floor as the swimsuit people, and like.
Is that like a whole different department?
Yeah, the swimsuit people would come. Well, the swimsuit issue essentially funds Sports Illustrated, which is what a lot of people
That's
don't
awesome.
realize. They make so much money from the swimsuit issue.
And I like how it's like a quasi like fashion show where they are like you can buy these swimsuits.
Yeah. No, it was like.
But it's all just a ruse to get like some models and some swimsuits.
We were never. It was very well known that the swimsuit issue was kind of like the bread and butter.
That's
in
awesome.
like a
No
funny
idea.
way. But it was like, I don't know. That was a trip. But I think ultimately, I say this all the time, career-wise, I am the most content now that I have ever been.
You're living the dream.
Whatever, I guess it's more, I have a better perception of the idea that there is no dream.
Yeah, it's true.
Or at least like whatever dream you're chasing, it's not gonna be filled by the job because the job will never love you back.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm lucky to have is that I can like, I do think I approach comedy without a lot of bitterness. It's very easy, especially in New York.
Yeah.
To let bitterness soak into it, but I haven't. It'll happen eventually.
Yeah, who knows? Well, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I
not everyone seems bitter.
No. I guess that's the thing is like there's this perception of, like all these comics, but whenever I talk to comics, all of us all do seem pretty happy to be doing what we're doing in a certain way.
It's fun to be negative on stage.
Yeah, it's fun to be negative about what we're doing,
thing.
but it's like there is. I think the hole that was missing for me was like feeling like I was part of a community. Like I lived in New York for like 9 or 10 years before I started doing comedy, but it wasn't until I started doing comedy that I felt like, oh, I should be here. Like, because you're traveling around the city, but also, and it really was in the past like year and a half that I started feeling this feeling of like when you go to like a random place in Manhattan and I just know somebody there that I can hang out with and be cool with.
Yeah.
And it's someone from...
And you know the neighborhood a little bit.
Yeah. And it's someone from a completely different background than me. And literally the only reason why we like each other is we think the other person is funny. And someone liking me only because they think I'm funny is like all I really need. Perfect. I really need that.
That's great.
Being in a community.
You know very little about your life outside.
Well, that's like the thing about New York comedy that's nice though. Is like it's like, of course, everyone will say like politics and stuff like that, but it is nice to be, once you get past, I wasn't ready for the ego deaths when I first moved here.
Yeah.
Like once you come here, if you're willing to go through the ego deaths and get on the other side and people know that you're a decent person who takes it seriously, you're kind of in. Like it
is awesome.
Yeah, you're like...
That's the most fun thing, I think, is just being like, oh, people know who I am.
Yeah.
In the comedy community.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like fans. It's just like going to a place and knowing that like, oh, these people I think are funny. They think I'm funny. And like that, regardless of the other stuff that happens, I think when you start doing comedy, you want to know if you can do it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's really hard to get to that point. No one wants to go through the part where you suck at it.
The first year, you're like, this was a mistake.
Yeah, no. And that's the same thing with writing. It's just like people ask all the time, well, how do you get into writing? How do you get started with this stuff? And the truth is, it's similar to comedy where like, no one's going to give you permission.
Yeah.
You have to like start doing it, and you have to be comfortable not being great at it right away.
Yes.
Like you have to be willing to get reps. Yeah.
And this brings us to the whole point of this episode is, Dan, are you going to get me a job at the Onion?
Well, I do pull the strings there. I have a lot of sway.
There's a freelance once a week.
No. And as I iterated several times, I don't work there. I am not an employee of the Onion. But look, I'll pull every string I have to get you in charge at the Onion. Truthfully, if they do have like an ask out for like freelancer contributors, I'll let you know.
Okay, well, that would be cool.
Was that really what you want?
No, not really.
I do have people ask me all the time.
Do people ask? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I have people asking all the time, and it's hard for me to know exactly because they're...
I don't know if I would like writing for the Onion. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing that's like funny is like a lot of comics I know do trials for them and then just don't end up following through with it because it is a specific voice. I guess as I'll say, it's like you aren't writing jokes it's not your own voice.
You have to write the Onion.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I really want to do that.
Yeah, it's like you can definitely come up with the jokes, but a lot of it is like the formatting, but also it's like stand-up where the hardest part is just showing up.
Yeah.
Just like...
It's like being on SNL. It's like, really, do you think you'd want to be on SNL? It
kind
of seems like hell.
Oh, well, yeah, no, it's one of those things where like, yeah, in theory, but the stress of like...
They come up with the whole show one week, every week, you're like...
I guess it's also... Well, you were talking about like with your acting thing. Sometimes it's the deadline. Having a deadline is like... That really gets my mojo going. I used to... My like ritual in college was staying up all night before I had a deadline. And then I got old, and now it's staying up as late as I can before
you're like, this is over,
or waking up super early. But deadline definitely gives me some juice, I think. Yeah.
What you said about the Onion reminds me of. I tried to play college baseball. Right, You went to the tryout. I went to Loyola, New Orleans. Part of the reason I went there is I felt like I had a chance of making the team because it's not great, and I was like this close to being good enough, but they were like, we'll make you the player manager. They're like, you can practice, you can do every practice, but you're not on the roster. You're the manager, you have to keep stats during the game.
Did you do laundry or is that someone else?
No.
Okay.
That was like a club. We didn't have a clubhouse manager.
Okay,
Not that, no budget for that.
Yeah.
But I remember sometimes I would ask the coach for like I had to go to every game.
Yeah.
Technically. But like there's a couple times I'd be like, Coach, I have like a big exam on Wednesday. Like, do I really have to go to Nicholls State Tuesday night? Like, kid, do I have to go with the team? And then he'd always go, you can stay home because you're not on the team. And it would just crush me. And I'm like, that wasn't worth it. I think I would rather fail the exam.
Oh man, that's so funny.
Than have that interaction. He would do that. He did that like 5 times. I'm like, this kid, I think he's an evil man.
No, that's